that actual one is the actual original pencil drawn by Gary Larson. It's signed with apology.
Welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. Here's your host, Scott Cowan.
So welcome back to this episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast. I'm sitting here today in Petosa Accordion's showroom, surrounded by 100 or 200 accordions. Guys, can you introduce yourselves? Go around the quote-unquote table, tell the audience who you are, and then we'll go from there.
My name is Joe Petosa. I'm a junior.
When you say that, I think like in high school or college. Sorry.
Yeah, so my father was senior. My son is the third.
So family, is this the third generation in the business now?
I'm third generation,
Fourth.
and my son would be fourth generation.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Gabe Hall-Rodriguez, and I'm an accordionist. I'm an accordionist and accordion repairman. Yeah.
What's the Maytag repairman? Do you have the little suit like that?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a onesie.
Yeah.
A onesie?
Custom nice onesie. I'm Joey Petosa III. I'm fourth generation here in this family business.
Joey, how long have you been working in the business?
I've been here since 2009.
Okay. How long have you been?
This would be my 44th year.
Okay. So the company, 100th year.
It's our 100-year anniversary. My grandfather immigrated from Italy back in like around 1906, 1907, was a professional accordionist. When he arrived in this country, became a professional accordionist at the age of 15, played around in what they call the vaudeville era, the Pantages circuit. These were little theaters, hundreds of them throughout the country that they would put on shows. The accordion was extremely popular due to the fact that many places didn't have a piano. And so the accordion became that instrument that people could bring with them as in place of the piano.
So when your grandfather immigrated to the United States, did he immigrate to Washington or did he?
No, Ellis Island, started on the East Coast. And basically the Pantages circuit brought him all the way to the East Coast or the West Coast. After a few years, he got interested in like how these things worked, and more so than playing. So he landed a job at an accordion factory in San Francisco. It was called the Guarini factory. It was basically the first factory in the United States in accordion, started by Italian immigrants. And so he learned the craft of building a complete accordion there.
So earlier on, before we hit record, you were showing me the book, and there's some debate to where the accordion originated from. What's your opinion?
Well, there's not a debate where the accordion originated from. There's a little like who invented the first accordion as we know it. Okay. So, it depends on how you want to logistically say. There was one guy that patented the word and his instrument called the accordion.
And when was that?
1829.
Okay.
Cyril Damon.
And so some of these instruments that are behind you on the shelf here, these smaller...
would be replicas of that kind of instrument that he patented.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are what they call diatonic instruments. They're bisonoric, so when you push and pull the bellows with one button, they have two tones.
Okay.
Where the accordion, as we know it, in a piano version or what they call a chromatic button version, is monosonoric, so the same note in and out,
okay,
and chromatic scale.
And then when did your grandfather come up to the Seattle area?
So after he apprenticed in the Guarini factory, he came up here, I believe, around 1921. Just like people had mentioned, he'd never been up here, so he wanted to, before he decided where he wanted to plant his roots, he wanted to see what it was like. And then once he was here, he wanted to plant his roots. And then he bought a house, and in 1922 started building accordions on his own in the basement of his house.
That could be a whole episode right there, building accordions in the basement of the house. But so he was entrepreneurial, though. I mean, he didn't waste any time.
No.
Okay.
He knew, I think, what he wanted to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, you weren't there for that, but what's the stories of him building them in the garage? I mean, interesting.
I mean, the only recollection I know of is, he never kept records. There was no bill of sales. There was no records of what he made. That was just, he was fortunate to build one and sell it. So it wasn't until my dad came in after he served in World War II, came into the business full time, and then legitimately turned it into a business.
So your dad came in. So after World War II. So
my dad came in and, of course, learned when he was 9-10 years old, just like I did myself, and but like I said, after he went after high school, he got drafted, and after we got out in 1944. And came to the business full time, and then turned it into a, records keeping business. Yeah, legitimate business.
When did you guys move out of the basement?
As the accordion grew in popularity and our business grew, that was time for my grandfather and my dad to increase production. And since in the United States, all the factories that were building accordions, workforce was at 110%. I mean, there was no other labor in this industry. They were all working already. And so all of us in that industry in the U.S. went back to Italy, where the accordion kind of was started, and the first factory started in Castelfidardo, Italy. 46, we started a partnership with a small little firm of some guys in their own right building accordions in a farmhouse, so to speak. And then we moved into a factory, and then increased production from Italy. So we imported our products made in Italy coming to the United States. And in that era, the accordion was extremely popular for 50 years back in vaudeville era. Mm-hmm. And then after the war, in 1948, there was one kid from Fresno, California, 17-year-old, playing the accordion, went on a national talent contest, radio contest. His name was Dick Contino. And after a year of playing and winning every competition every single week, he was the national champion.
Okay.
And that set the world on fire, or the country on fire, with the accordion. And every kid wanted to play the accordion. So from 1948, importing of about maybe 25,000 accordions into the U.S. By 1959, we were importing 250,000 accordions a year.
Is that you or
no? The United States,
the industry.
Yeah, the industry. So,
okay.
Yeah, so for a period of 10 years, the accordion was the most popular played instrument in the country. It outsold every other musical instrument combined.
I did not know.
Yeah,
That's wild, right?
That's really wild.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this guy playing the accordion was, girls were screaming, and when he walked
like the
on
Beatles.
stage, he got his shirt ripped off. Yeah, I mean, he was Elvis before Elvis. But this was radio, so he didn't have the popularity of television at that time.
Right.
So, people didn't really know what he looked like, but he looked good enough that he became a Hollywood movie star and
Wow.
did the whole trick.
So you began to import accordions in from Italy.
Yeah, so our factory, we started producing more accordions in Italy. And then in 1955, my father, we needed more room. We needed, to grow. So he purchased a building on 45th Street in Wallingford District, a commercial building, and where he moved the company there.
That was without great-grandpa's knowledge, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting story. So my grandfather, we're fine, we're okay. We went to Italy. We're importing more accordions. We're doing just right. We don't need anything.
We're keeping records now. What more do you want?
Yeah, what more do you want? And my dad just we need to get better. So one month my grandfather went on his yearly trip to Italy, and my dad packed up everything. A friend of his owned a trucking company. We packed up the shop. He bought a building and moved in. And when my grandfather came back, there's a brand new showroom work, and he had no idea.
How did that go over?
I don't think he was upset. I think he was shocked. But then after, my dad had it all set up. So, it went over. It ended up really well.
So how long were you guys on Wallingford? In that
From
Wallingford?
1955 to 2018.
So where? Because I want to say the logo, the sign, I've seen it in that area, and I'm trying to remember, what were you by?
We were one block west of I-5 on the south end of 45th. The most iconic place from people that were one block east of Dick's Drive-In.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So kind of where Golden Oldies Records.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just the block down.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
I knew that.
Same
Okay.
thing.
That's okay. So so you moved here to the Linwood area.
Yeah. So again, things changed. Our business model was changing. We had more people in the store, workers. We wanted to expand. My son had some great ideas, and luckily he didn't do it when I was gone. We decided to do this together. But yeah, and location-wise, we didn't. Parking was an issue. A lot of different reasons. A multitude of reasons that we decided to move out and build a new shop out here in Linwood.
Okay. How old were you when you went to work full time in the business?
I started playing the accordion at 7.
Did you win any competitions?
We didn't do competitions. Our teacher was not a competition guy. He thought you could go out and earn money rather than
He was a working
doing
guy.
it for free.
Okay.
So my first gig was at 10 years old and went on to play professionally for about 15 years. But we started in the shop. I go to my dad. My dad took us to the shop every Saturday afternoon when we were, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. By junior high, after school, we would go down and spend a few hours learning. Graduated high school, went a couple years of business school, and then went to full-time in 1980, full-time.
Okay.
Yeah, and kept playing the accordion on the side.
So one of the questions I always ask musicians is, I'll ask you first, and we'll go around the room later. But as a performer, back in the day, where was the best venue to play at as a performer that you thought, as a musician, as the artist, this is a cool place to play? They took good care of you, all of that.
We were like weekend warriors. So my memory of playing like the really nice restaurants, Rossellini's 410, 610. Those were, and Victor Rossellini was a great guy. And when we played there, we sat. After playing, here, sit down at have a magnificent meal, and treated us really, really well. The clientele there was great, and the pay was really well. But we did weddings, funerals, birthdays, anniversaries. I remember one gig we did was like a birthday party for a 30-year-old in a pool parlor. And between pool and between playing Jackson Browne music, we were the entertainment.
Okay.
So we did everything.
You did everything.
Yeah. We played at Fifth Avenue,
Okay.
Opening strolling accordionist for the show.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of experience.
So why did you stop playing?
Oh, because we couldn't continue to work full time, 6 days a week, and play, 3 nights a week. We did it for a good stretch of time, but then you have kids, and you have to start a family, and you don't have time for that.
So it's his fault.
That was Philly's fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was the demise of my professional accordion playing.
We now have that recorded. When did your dad retire from the business?
My dad really, in essence, never retired. He quit working, physically doing the manual work that he did. Probably 1990?
Mm-hmm.
But continued operating some of the business standpoints, and then, but he stopped working, but he was there every day. That was his livelihood as far as just being around customers and, continuing the generational insurance of the business.
Well, as my friend Renee has told me stories about, your dad and, his Renee's dad. And so it's like, it's interesting to kind of I never met you before, never met your father, but I get the feeling your dad was an ambassador for.
Yeah,
for
I mean, our
instrument.
customers, Al Faber and Renee's father, Al Faber, and my dad, they became very close friends. I mean, not just customers, not just clients, but they would see each other, outside of work. My dad would, go and see him play all the time. And I mean, it was a supportive environment for everybody.
Early 50s instruments super popular, popularity wanes. Where's it at now, in your opinion? In 2022, is it steady? Interest in the instrument, is it growing?
It's growing. The increase, the demand for the accordion, the popularity in the last decade has been larger than it has been in the last 40 years. So it's you can read many articles, and they all start with the accordion resurgence, which is a very true statement. And it's all change due to music. So you can talk to some the younger people and Gabe and Joey. I mean, it's the reason why the accordion went out of decline was the change of music. It wasn't because of the instrument.
Mm-hmm.
Rock and roll just changed everything, and by the time the Beatles showed up, it was over. And the downfall was kind of the accordion's fault, or the people involved, the teachers and the environment, was they hated rock and roll. They didn't want rock and roll. They didn't want you to play rock and roll.
Mm.
So it's like, you got to keep this, stuff that we've been playing 50 years ago. This is what you should be playing on the accordion. And so they kind of took themselves out in a sense as well.
Normally I don't ask business questions, but
Yeah.
I'm going to try to frame this broadly. So during, say, the 60s and 70s, the accordion popularity was pretty low.
So you went from, in 1959, you went to the peak of importing accordions of over 250,000.
Mm-hmm.
By 1965, it was, 1965, 66, it was 5,000.
So how does a business stay afloat when you have that significant drop of sales?
Well, we don't need to sell. We don't even make 5,000 accordions.
I know,
a year.
but
I mean, the point is that we were still small. I mean, we were considered a small manufacturer and a small business, which my dad preferred to keep it, to have control over it.
Okay.
All the other companies that went large and went where they needed to sell 1,000 accordions to survive, those are the companies that went out of business. So we continued to maintain high quality.
Mm-hmm.
So there was still a market. You had all these thousands and thousands of people that took accordion as a kid.
Right.
Now in the 70s, mid 60s to 70s, they were becoming adults.
Mm-hmm.
The music scene was still around. So they were still playing.
Okay.
Now they were just playing, not student instruments. They were playing professional instruments,
Which is more along the lines
which
of
is what we catered to,
okay.
and where we went to.
So the company adapted then. Well, not even really adapted. You stayed.
We just continued,
Right.
and our shift was, back in the 50s, 80% of our production were student models.
Mm-hmm.
Now is 80% of our production were professional models.
Right. Okay.
And the higher dollar value just means, you don't have to make as many either.
Right. Okay. So, Joey, I'll ask you this question: what's your model percentage now in 2022? Jump to modern day.
From student to professional.
Right.
I mean, where there once was a difference between student and professional, very in a more strict manner. Today, we consider any of our Petosa accordions are considered professional level as far as quality and how they're made and who they're designed for. Of course, there's plenty of those, folks that maybe at the beginning stage or intermediate stage are just wanting the best of something. And so that's where, Petosa caters to. Today we have a second line, and we also offer other brands that fill that void of more entry level price points. But our second line is what we consider to be a lot more price competitive, but also maintains the same Petosa characteristics and high quality features. There's some major cost saving things where we streamline some production. But yeah, to answer your question in more direct fashion, I think there's always a demand for the highest quality of something, whatever it is. And so Petosa still, is at the top as far as that category is concerned. Our ventures today are consisting a lot of trying to fill the void of quality and price combined, whereas there's just not a lot of options right now. In previous 10, 15 years, as the accordion industry is becoming more busy, you get kind of one or the other. You get quality with price, or you get entry level with lower price. Yeah. And so we've been working for the last 5-6 years on meeting those two together.
Okay.
And that would be our second line, called Americana. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask a generic question. One of you jump in and answer this. The accordion is a very simple instrument, not a lot of moving parts. How many parts are in a typical accordion?
Typical 6,000 to 7,000. Yeah.
Yeah, there's 2,000 or 3,000 pieces in an entry level small size accordion.
Okay, knowing next to nothing about the instrument, just doubling the parts. I mean, you go from 3,000 to 6,000. Are the reeds more intricate, or why doubling parts?
Well, it's basically musical. So a student model accordion, entry level accordion doesn't need as many playing notes, doesn't need the musical range.
Okay.
And when you get into a more professional instrument where you're playing already and you just need more of an instrument. So more notes, no more playing range. Kind of like saying a piano with 4 octaves.
Okay.
And then you have a piano with 7 octaves.
Okay.
They're just more pieces. Yeah.
That just seems like first off, it's a staggering amount of parts.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is everything down to individual screws, but
That's crazy.
yeah. And when you think of musically having an instrument in the upper end of what they call a free bass instruments, they have the musical range of a piano.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you think of an instrument and the characteristics of a cathedral reed organ, pipe organ sound with stops and changes of voices, when you consider that sitting on your lap and you can take it anywhere that you want in the world, it's incredible.
When you put it that way, that helped me, because I'm looking around the room going, those parts are really small because those boxes aren't that big.
Yeah.
So
musically, you're carrying a piano with you.
Right. No.
And think about that, what that takes.
Right. Right. These are a whole lot easier to move to the piano. From an assembly standpoint, putting an accordion together, a lot of time. You told me lots of hours, lots of months, because you guys are letting them dry, you're seasoning and things like this. The difference between your two brands, your two lines, time wise. If your phone rang earlier today and somebody asked you about an accordion. So imagine that was me going, "Hey, I'd like to buy an accordion," and you go, "Great, we have these 3 models." I'll just say 3, and I say, "I'd like the top of the line one that you have." I'm just going to point to one over there on the top shelf. I want the one on the top shelf. You can look at it and tell me what that price would be. And I say, "Great, I want it, but I want it in blue, so you don't have it in stock. How long am I waiting?"
Well, it takes, from start to finish, it's going to take, on our top models, it's going to take roughly 18 months.
And how do people react when you tell them that? Professional musicians probably get it, but what about somebody that's got money and their kid says they want an accordion, and they come in, they want to buy the best for little Timmy, and they go, "It's going to be 18 months." How does the public take that?
Well, you got to consider you're dealing with a particular clientele when you're dealing with a $15,000 to $30,000 instrument. So it's not Timmy.
It's not Timmy?
It's not Timmy.
You haven't had Timmy come in?
Timmy might want the Americana in blue.
Mm-hmm.
And in those productions, we produce, a much more quantity, because the difference is in the higher end, there's, the materials. I mean, there's difference in qualities of materials, but the workmanship is the labor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in our high end, we only have literally a handful of labor workers that have that skill level to produce those. So that's why they're very limited and they take so long, but limited in production. In the lesser models, and more so the Americana line, we can use all the workers in the factory and even workers outside the factory. So, components are like it's it's kind of a cottage industry as well. If you want to mass produce instruments, no one factory can build all the accordions they want, but a factory can go out and have parts made by other companies that build parts for the accordion. And so if you hire 3 or 4 of these cottage places that build certain parts, and then you do more of an assembly, you don't get the quality. So it depends on how far you want to reach and what your quantity base is. But
Okay, well, we're going to go back to little Timmy, and Timmy's dad's got the MX Black card. Price doesn't matter. And he's willing to wait 18 months.
yeah.
And you said you had a handful of craftsmen to do this work. How many craftsmen would be involved in making one of these? You just said 7. So what would their roles loosely be?
So you have a box maker. That's the shell of the instrument, the cabinet. Then we have the bass mechanic. So that's all the little black buttons on the left side, all the buttons, the mechanical operation of that. There's one guy that makes that. We have a keyboard maker that just makes the high-end keyboards. We have one tuner. We get supplied reed sets, which are, could take quite a while to manufacture and wait for. We have, the bellows there's not a lot to bellows, other than the material.
So I was shocked when Joey showed us the repair room in the back, right? And I asked, what the bellows was made of, and it was cardboard, and I'm still not quite sure I believe
Well,
it.
specifically, you have to understand that it's German cardboard.
Oh, you didn't say that.
Yeah.
You got to train him about it.
Specifically German
Oh,
cardboard.
no, in all seriousness, why, and what characteristics does it have? I didn't know there was a thing as German cardboard. Did not know.
Yeah, it's very high density cardboard, and then it's the thickness. It's cardboard. I mean, it just needs to be somewhat flexible, and so. And most people think, well, if the bellows are in good shape, the rest of the accordion. No, the bellows actually last longer than the rest of the accordion.
That's what he was saying earlier, and I'm still skeptical. I mean, honestly, it's cardboard. I think it gets wet, it's ruined. I mean, it's
If it gets damaged, that's the later.
But when I think of cardboard, I think of an Amazon box.
Well, yeah, but then the cardboard's covered with material to protect it.
Right.
So and layers of material. So the cardboard itself does never get exposed unless it's.
So are you buying these bellows pre-made, or are you manufacturing the bellows?
No factories. No companies make their own bellows.
Okay.
So there's bellow factories, and that's all they do is manufacture bellows.
Just the machine to compress the bellows is the size of a Suburban.
Really?
Yeah.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah.
So are you? So when you let's talk about the bellows for a second. So it's German cardboard. Factory makes bellows. Are they covering the bellows too, or is that?
Yeah, they complete the bellows.
So you're buying that whole assembly.
Yeah, it's all the folds and the leather gussets, and the material of what they're covered in. And again, there's just there's still some hand processing in making bellows.
Wow.
I'd say 70% of it's hand done.
Yeah.
Wow.
So again, the craftsmanship is still there. How fast do you want to make them? How many do you want? So the slower production, the higher the quality. But we buy the bellows, and then they have to put frames on them to fit the accordion. So we make the frames, and then the frames are mounted on the bellows to fit the instrument, that particular instrument.
Okay.
A lot of people ask if they can replace their bellows. How can I replace my bellows? And they think it's just a really quick process.
I would think that.
But because they're, like Joe said, the bellows are made, but the frame that attaches to the accordion, that's made specific to the accordion.
So is that the box maker's job to make the frame?
Yeah, they make the frame, along with the box.
Wow. What are the keys made out of?
Different companies make that.
What your keys?
Petosa accordions we only use wood keyboards, and then specifically walnut for the keys, and then that's the key itself, the wood key itself, and then the top, which is the white part, is called lucite.
Okay.
It's kind of like a plexiglass.
Right.
But other companies use stamped out plastic, or the whole key's made out of plastic or metal. So, it's different fabrications depending on the quality, but walnut wood is always been the premier way to make a high quality keyboard.
Okay.
Because walnut is hard and it can be aged and it doesn't change and warp over time.
Right.
I feel like there's something that like we haven't really, like, we're talking about this gigantic variety, or like this huge spectrum of quality. And so we were talking about, Timmy in 18 months and
Yes,
we're
but he has
talking
a black Amex card.
but he has the card. That's right. But when we're talking about like the top model, the AM 1100, Petosas make all of the accordions are fantastic and they're all professional quality. When we're talking about the AM 1100, that accordion is like super duper unique. I mean, nobody makes accordions like that, and that's probably talking about how do they respond to when you say it's going to take 15 months. Well, this is like an entirely different echelon of accordion manufacturing than like 95% of the accordions out there.
What makes that accordion unique? What's different about it than, I don't know what your competitor, will you give me a competitor? We'll just...
Well, everybody in our industry produces accordions on a high scale production. They use a lot of outside sources. We're concentrating on a particular quality level, and we know that we're only going to make 10 or 11 of these models a year. That's all we can produce. So if we wanted to, say, increase production, well, we'd have to sacrifice the quality and the workmanship.
And that's
not what we're going to do with that model. That's not.
For example, there's just we're talking about the keyboard construction. So the keyboard construction on the AM 1100, we have, one being trained currently, keyboard artisan that is still capable of making what is one of the major unique factors of the 1100 model, which is a solid walnut key with a walnut guide. So you'd have to see it to really, picture what that translates to. But basically, where the steel rod goes through as the fulcrum on the keyboard, the walnut frame is one continuous piece of solid walnut. In the guide, the opening where the fulcrum meets the rod is walnut, has just where traditionally everybody's using a type of metal, typically brass, for that guide. So metal on metal contact versus metal on walnut wood contact, different feel, different response, just a totally different ball game as far as a keyboard's concerned.
All American made accordions always used, 100% of American made accordions used an all wood walnut keyboard. That's been from day one.
Okay.
That was the invention. The Italians didn't even know that, didn't know how to build individually handmade accordions. That was started in the U.S.
Wow. How long has the AM 1100 been in production?
We started in 1952.
Have there been any changes to it? I mean, that may sound stupid, but so
What improvements?
What improvements have been made from a 1952 model to a 2022 model?
You got to consider when you work with what you know at the time. But advantages to that, just the existing keyboard itself has been improved. Finding ways to make it better, quieter, faster, cleaner, sharper, more responsive, and even outlasting, the old models as far as not needing service. Our accordions have always been about, my dad always felt that, how can we build an accordion that a professional can play and use 7 days a week, 6-7 hours a day, and hold up his entire career?
Yeah, because having to send it back to you for a repair, he's probably not carrying two of them with him.
I mean, one artist that I mentioned to you, Dick Antino, back in the day, he was given accordions to play as advertising. Mm-hmm. He literally would go through 3 or 4 accordions a year. So they would have to give him 3 accordions every year to go through, because they wouldn't hold up to his performances.
What? Why? What was?
He's a
hard player. He
abuses the accordion when he plays it.
Okay.
So he plays it beyond because he's a showman.
Okay.
But we're not talking about Petosas. We're talking about prior to him getting
Right.
involved with the Petosas.
Okay, so when you
He
got,
had, we made him his first accordion in 1967. That accordion, one of his people that, followed his career and just was enamored by him, met him several times and became good friends and said, if you ever want to sell that accordion, I want to buy it. So I think in 1980, so about 30 years later, he wanted it so bad, and Dick sold it to him. So his first accordion that's built in 1967 is still being played by another professional. And so Dick's had two Petosas his whole career.
and is he still playing with this aggressive showmanship?
He passed away in 2017.
The answer then would be no.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No. And now it's in the museum, Boston Museum of...
But was he playing aggressively?
Oh, yeah, up till his...
So
the guy was...
why do you think your accordion withstood this? What's going on there?
We built it with that in mind, to hold up and for strength and durability and longevity. So
Okay.
we just did things that, made things thicker, made things better, made material stronger.
Does that change the sound that the instrument made, though, if you're making things thicker?
As they say, accordions aren't supposed to be, you don't want them too heavy because you wear them, but they still have to be a certain weight. But harder materials sound better. Harder materials last longer. They do weigh a little bit more.
So what did his accordion weigh?
27 pounds.
And what's the 1100 weigh?
27 pounds.
So we still make it the same way.
So you're making it the same way.
It's born of the same genetics. Yeah, I mean, just again improved much more in the mechanical
So
aspects.
an average
and-
accordion weighs 25 pounds.
Yeah.
So you're just coming in 10% more.
Yeah. Well, it just depends on you got to look at very, very specific, specifications to really compare.
There's also accordions by the companies that are heavier than ours.
Yeah.
Because of the way they're made, not for any other intention other than just the way they're made.
Okay. What do you play?
I play an AM 1100. I also have it's my AM 1100's from 1987. I also have an AM 1200 from 1957.
What's the difference between the 1100 and the 1200?
One less set of reeds
In the keyboard side.
in the keyboard side. Yeah. So my AM 1100 is like what they consider to be standard full size. It's 4 reeds on the right hand side and 5 on the left. The AM 1200, a little bit lighter, older accordion, so it's a slightly different profile. Like little things have changed over the years, but the primary difference is that it has 3 reeds on the right side and 5 on the left.
Why did you name it AM 1100? Sounds like a radio station.
Yeah, originally in the 50s, we had names for them. So they originally in 1952 that model was called the chamber tone. Then we had a model called the Style Master, the Artist,
Concert.
the Stroller, the Concert, the Grand,
The Baby Grand.
and a Baby Grand, and then the Petite. In 1959, my uncle, who helped a little bit in advertising, and he went to the UW, they just came up with model numbers rather than changed out of their names. There's no significance to that in the numbers. They don't mean anything
what
other
does
than
AM
AM stands for artist model.
Artist model. Okay.
Yeah. And then we had our SM models, which stood for student model.
Okay.
But the numbers don't have any significance.
Okay.
Now they kind of, now they
it's
kind
very
of do.
significant,
Now,
yeah.
now it determines sort of the size and the amount of sort of features and where does that kind of sit on the product line.
Yeah.
The A1100 being, well, that's an interesting question. Why do we make the AM11? I have a question now. The AM1100. Why did we call the AM1100 the AM1100 being sort of that? Like this is the model, but then there's a 1300 and a 1400, which I would assume that as the numbers go up, it would mean like more features, but actually the 1300s and the 1400s they don't have the tone chamber, which is like a whole nother conversation about stuff.
Yeah, I wasn't around then. I was born a year after they decided to do this.
Okay. We can't hold you responsible.
But you know what? It's worked. It's stuck around for the last 70 years, and now the AM 1100 model number is synonymous with one of the best built accordions in the world.
And you're making about a dozen of those annually?
Yeah. We don't make them. We can't produce them every 12 months, but about every 16 months on an average of 11 to 12, 10, 11.
So, random question. How are they brought from Italy to here? I mean, are you FedExing them?
On an aircraft.
Aircraft. So you're not trusting them on a
Ocean ship line.
along with a bunch of BMWs and Audis and
Not quite the climate for accordions on a
so-
ship across
so
the
they're
ocean.
flown over.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. But back in the 50s,
No, back in the 50s, it was all ocean freight. But the difference was, too, we were, back then we were selling 250 accordions a month. My dad and, there was two of them.
But also, you said that you were building a lot of the accordions, like you were assembling a lot of the accordions in Seattle. So they weren't showing up.
Just the 1100.
So
Just the 1100.
were the parts manufactured over in Italy, shipped over, partially assembled, and final assembly was done here in Seattle?
I mean, the 1100s that we made here, all the wood, everything wood we made here.
Okay.
The machine parts. There's some machine parts which naturally have to be produced, and that comes from Italy, and the reeds came from Italy.
Okay.
Yeah, and all of our models from 1952 and all of our artist models from 1952 to 1987, the reeds are what you'd consider to be the heart and soul of the accordion.
Mm-hmm.
Were made by one individual by hand in his house. And then you've considered there's 224 reed tongues in an 1100, each individual tongue made by hand.
What are the tongues made out of?
Swedish blue steel.
That's very specific.
Yeah, it's a specific tempered steel, spring steel.
So how did you guys come up? What sort of prototyping and testing do you do to get to the fact that you landed on Swedish blue steel?
Well, that's an accordion standard, industry standard. They developed that back in the 1800s.
But so is Petosa looking at making? Hopefully, not asking any questions that are proprietary, and they're going to kill me after the episode. But are you guys prototyping any changes, updates as technology changes?
Yeah, I'll let Joey.
Okay, so my question is how do you guys prototype? Let's say you're going to move away from Swedish blue steel. How would
Well, you're not going to move away from Swedish blue steel.
okay.
They've tried stainless steel. We've over the decades of the industry's tried many different things and never come up with anything better.
Okay.
I don't think that's going to change, but the way the proprietary way the reeds are made, there's different quality levels. You want to make 10,000 reeds in an hour, or one set in a day.
Right. Okay. But how would you prototype this if you're working through something? Like, is there an area of an accordion that, in your opinion, Joey, could be modernized?
Sure. I mean, we've done that, and we continue to strive to do that. Just some simple examples are, American accordions, and Petosa in general has used mahogany for the most part, as far as, the majority of acoustic tone wood.
Mm-hmm.
In the later, more recent years, the demand for lighter weight instruments has become more popular. So we've, experimented and also, put in production a lot of instruments using spruce, for example. So it's a lighter weight wood.
So what is that? Just out of curiosity, changing from mahogany to spruce, what's the weight of the instrument change?
Yeah, well, so there's certain things that you don't change. Like we know mahogany box is something that we do not change, unless you're talking about a specific specialized model like our Artista Pro that's solid maple, for example. So, but that, again, different beast. But for, standard Petosa production, those things, there's certain things don't change. There are some things that can and do, which are the reed block material. Again, that can affect weight to some significant degree. It will, it translates to a little bit of less weight, a little bit brighter sound. So, there's some give and takes, and there's some actual intentions behind a lot of that stuff. So for certain styles of music, a lot of folk music of today is, a little bit brighter sound isn't a bad thing. And so that really warm mahogany rich sound that we've always been known for is in high demand and always will be. But there's also, something different. There's a demand for something different. So,
And so just changing the reeds out will make a noticeable tone change.
the reeds are more of a mechanical aspect to the instrument. So the tone doesn't necessarily come from the reeds, which are aluminum, Swedish blue steel, and of course, either mylar or leather as a valve material, which that in and of itself can change tonality and response to some degree. Most of the tonal aspects are going to come from the reed block material, which are a number of different types of reeds, different types of wood combined. But there's going to be the majority of that material is going to be, mahogany, spruce, and again, sometimes maple. As far as, the rest of where tone comes from, it comes from the cabinet or the box. The thickness of that box is, can change the brightness or warmness of sound. So we have some models in our lightweight series called the Leggera line that are a 3-ply mahogany. So it's a compressed mahogany material. In our AM1100 model, if you compared them side by side, you'd see a 5-ply mahogany box. And so that thicker material, of course, more weight, but also more density and therefore more sound, more volume, more warmth of sound as well. And, you could say that for many other aspects. You look at the tone chambers in the instrument. So a tone chamber is essentially a cabinet within the cabinet. So it's a chamber where most of the time, 2 of the 4 in a professional model, 2 of the 4, 2 of the 3 sets of reeds are housed in a chamber. What that chamber is made of is very important. Tone chambers are not created equal. There's aluminum-based tone chambers, which is, of course, much more cost-effective and much more speedy to produce. Our chambers in all of our Petosa models are going to consist of a solid mahogany tone chamber. So all made from one piece of mahogany by hand. And if you looked at the shape of the tone chamber, it has a 90-degree rounded curve to it. So the expertise of crafting that is very high.
It's milled from a solid block
Yeah.
rather than pieces put together.
Yeah.
So how long does that take to make a tone chamber? I mean, I'm fascinated by the whole craftsmanship aspect of everything here.
Yeah, I mean, when we build chambers, we'll produce 30 or 40 at a time.
Okay.
They're milled all. You're set up, so you mill it out. It's really the expertise of knowing how to mill that out, but then it has to be fitted and mounted for that one accordion. So the final process is really the labor intense.
Fiddling, if you
Right,
will.
because you can't. That's why aluminum, you can just bend it. If it doesn't fit here, you just bend it.
So how do you adjust?
Wood, you can't bend.
So how do you adjust a tone chamber then for an accordion? What do you have?
File and sand it
File and sanding
to meet another piece of wood
by hand.
The joint has to be done. Yeah, all by hand.
I mean, something that's that comes up is like when you look at all the parts and all the pieces of the accordion, because it's an industry. There's like, it's not any one piece necessarily. Although with the AM1100s, certainly the keyboard is the thing that takes a lot of time. But I feel like every individual part by itself doesn't necessarily take a lot of time to make. It's the putting it together that requires the extensive amount of time because it's all put together by hand.
So let's go back to the 1100 then. We're going to do the putting it together. I'll call it the final assembly maybe. Maybe that's not accurate, but we're going to put it together. How many man hours approximately?
That's 6 months
Now, when you say 6
by a
months,
multitude of people.
okay. Now, is that 6 months because we're letting things, sit for a while? But I'm
Now,
not.
if you took the whole amount of labor,
Mm-hmm.
like all the individuals, yeah, you're talking 6 months. Now, you got to understand too that you're not putting one accordion, taking 6 months to complete one accordion.
So you're
And
batching.
then you stop and then start another one accordion.
So you're working on 3 or 4.
I mean, you're working on a production, a series of several at a time. So it's one, but each one is done by hand.
It's hard to believe,
Well, in this day and age, yeah, it is kind of hard to believe. I mean, no, it's not that I don't believe you. It's just it's
incredible.
It's incredible. Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Yeah.
That you there's this artisan level of craftsmanship still going on.
Right.
Okay.
Now you know why
but there's a demand for it.
yeah, that's why our factory workers go home for a 2-hour nap during the middle of the day.
There's a way to help that. That's called espresso.
Yeah.
We're in Italy giving espresso. Where in Italy are these? Is it northern Italy? So where?
Castelfidardo is the mecca of accordion for the world, and that's nearest biggest city is Ancona. If you're on the north and south, looking at Italy, you're all the way on the Adriatic side.
Okay.
On the east side, on the coast.
Okay.
And right smack
clear
down.
day, you can see. Well, it used to be Yugoslavia, Serbia, Croatia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why do you think that this area? This is probably an awkward question for everybody, but why do you think this area became this mecca of accordion craft?
Because back in 1850 era, that's where Paolo Soprani took this patented accordion as we know it, button system, and turned it into the accordion that we knew it, started the first factory and employed the first workers. And that's where it's kind of like Detroit of the automobile. Why was it Detroit? Why wasn't it, New Orleans or
Right. Okay.
It just that's happenstance.
Right.
And then that's what created the economy there, though.
Okay.
It was one of the largest economies in Italy.
Okay.
I mean, when you go to Castelfidardo today, a lot of people that live in town and even around there, they work in the industry.
Okay. People that play your instruments. Where's the strangest place you gotten an order from? To you, what strange? I mean, Everett? No, I mean, where have people come and how have people found your brand through the years? I mean, you've been in business 100 years. I don't think it's because you're selling accordions in just Seattle.
No, I mean, let's go back to my era. In my dad's era, it was basically word of mouth.
Okay.
I mean, we would sell, somebody would hear about our instrument on the East Coast or in Australia or in Germany I think the one that sticks in my head as being, like you said, most memorable, I'm going to say, was we got a letter from China, and this particular artist was and still is one of the most recognizable concert artists in China. His father was the first teacher in the accordion studio in China, so it's kind of considered the father of the accordion in China, where the largest amount of accordion players are. He wrote us a letter and asked about one of our instruments, and long story short, we built what he wanted. He had to then get a visa and permission to leave the country to come and get it, and that was just a 6-month process alone. So he didn't speak in English, or his wife, so he shows up. We met him and we got along because we're just talking accordions.
How did you talk accordion to somebody that doesn't speak English, or do you speak Chinese?
Nope. Yeah, you don't really need to. I mean, it's all physical motion and pointing to something, and
okay, so
and all he wanted to do was play it, and know that
it sounded like
it sounded, and after all the years and all the accordions that he's been through, he stated many times in many publications that it's been the finest accordion that he's ever played.
So when he made the order, and you said you made it for him with his specifications, what sort of things can an artist change to
the note range, the amount of notes that he wants, where you want it to start and stop. His particular instrument was also called a converter freebass, which on the left hand turns the chord notes into single notes so that you can play individual piano, anything written for the piano. And there's different options as far as musical notation and how that works. And he came and picked it up, and that's the last time we saw him.
You can change the color too if you wanted to.
You can, what?
You can change the color if you want to.
The way you said that, I was like, after the fact, you can change the color. So
After the fact, the most common thing is, adding accessories, amplification, so on and so forth, but also tuning, custom tuning. So, if they want to change the spread of, be it dry or some form of musette or somewhere in between, that's something that, can
Do
be
you guys
changed after the
understand it?
fact.
Because I don't understand it
This
right
is common.
Sorry, these terms I got to
This is
explain.
all
Yeah.
accordion
now.
talk.
I know. I'm like, what? Okay, so try to break that down into not English, but
Yeah.
help me out.
So there's, depending on the style and genre of music, there's a type of tuning, which, in more layman's terms is that the how would you say? Yeah, I mean the configuration of reeds. So you have, in any one given accordion, you have most of the time a low octave and a middle octave. That's a very simple, entry level instrument. Intermediate to higher professional level instruments, you're going to be into a 3 or 4 reed accordion. I mean, there's 5 reed accordions, but they're, much more seldom. So you have the combinations. Think about, you have low, middle, high. You can combine that in a 3 or 4 reed accordion a number of different ways. You can have low, middle, middle. Mm-hmm. At a 4 reed, you can have low, middle, middle, high. In a 4 reed, you can have low, middle, middle, middle. In a jazz configuration where a lower octave is desired, you can have low, low, middle, middle. And, there's other unique configurations too, but those are the basic,
So somebody could come in and have you guys swap out, provide a. So if I bought your accordion from you, how's your accordion set up right now?
My accordion is a low, middle, middle, high, dry tuned accordion.
So let's say I wanted to change it to low, low, middle, high. I could come in here or could I do that? Or what?
First
off, the answer to that question is no. Scott can't touch it.
Yes,
but
correct.
What?
Not allowed.
Yeah, I'm trying. So so I'm going to buy his accordion. He's got it tuned for his thing. I want to do low, low, middle, high. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What would we do?
So that would be tuning's involved in that process, but that's separate concept from tuning. So you're talking more in regards to the reed configuration, as I would say. So that would entail taking the actual plates of the reeds off of the reed block and changing them out to a whole different octave. And so you're going to...
And then manufacturing new reed blocks.
Yes.
Because they
So
wouldn't
this
fit.
isn't
Exactly.
easy.
No, it's not. Accordions, a handmade accordion, you don't...
I'm
There's no
usually-
interchangeable parts. You don't take
Okay.
another something from somewhere else and then replace it.
Okay.
It's either made for the accordion at the time or it's not.
So what is your set for low, low, middle, high, and dry?
Low, middle, middle, high. So I think something that we kind of like glossed over is like the reed configuration versus the tuning.
Yeah.
So the tuning in those weird words that Joey was saying, like dry or musette, has to do with when two of those voices, two of those reed sets are in the same octave or the same note, one of them can be detuned. So this is something that we could do after the fact because this is tuning, right? Not reed configuration. So when you have two reeds together and they're both perfectly in tune, we call that dry. And that means that everything is nice and clean. It has sort of like a laser beam, really cutting sound. When you detune one of those reeds at the same octave, if you have low, middle, middle, so one of the middles is going to be tuned most likely sharp if it's a 2 reed, and they're going to pitch it up to, let's say, one of them is at 0, it's like 0 cents, it's perfectly in tune, and the other one is 15 cents sharp. And that, like, as I think for most musicians would be like, that sounds like a horrible idea. Why are you detuning something? But what we get is the frequencies of those two voices happening at the same time creates almost like a tremolo effect. The waves hitting each other makes it go from a pure sound to sort of like a wah 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 kind of sound. And that's more common in like folk music or ethnic music, let's say. Okay. The dry sound is more for if you play classical music, if you play jazz music, and really anything can be used for whatever you want, but it's at least historically, the musette is a very specific thing. That's the detune sound, and the dry is pretty well. It's totally in tune, and it's a different timbre. I mean, it creates like not just it creates the tremolo effect, but it also changes the timbre because you have two different tuned reeds.
So how long does an accordion? So like when I think of like a guitar or a piano, they go out of tune. Guitars go out of tune frequently. Pianos hopefully take a little. How long does an accordion stay in tune for? If
For the
properly
most part,
if
for the
properly
most
careful.
part, I mean, again, the level of quality. Okay, just like you tune a piano. Some pianos will need to be tuned every 2 months. Some will, every twice a year. Accordions aren't meant to be tuned on a regular basis.
Okay.
So it's they even a piano. I mean, when you play a guitar, any string instrument, as soon as you play it, they start going out of tune. Now, whether you can hear it or not, that's a different concept. But the accordion's kind of the same thing. It takes hours and hours to tune an accordion, multitude of hours. So it's the level of quality. I mean, you want an accordion. How long is it going to stay in tune? It depends on the quality. But a good accordion, the Petosa professionals will not have to return for 20, 30 years before it needs just some minor touch-up, as we say. So that's the intention. If an accordion has to be tuned every 2 or 3 years, you better get a better accordion.
Okay.
It's a much more stable system, right? With with a piano, there's a lot of tension in those strings, right? And so over time, it's going to drop, or it's going to change, or like the wood could move and it could fluctuate. With an aluminum plate with a stainless steel or a Swedish blue steel reed on there, there's only so much sort of movement that's going to happen.
Okay.
And again, quality dependent, but
What genres of music are you guys selling accordions to now? Is there something trending upward, genre-wise?
I'd say, there's a lot, it's that umbrella genre as far as Tex-Mex concerned. There's Tejano and Norteño and many other genres within that. But that's certainly, culturally, the accordion is probably the most popular instrument in the culture. And it's, it's a prized ability, and it's a prized instrument in that culture. And so I'd say that's certainly, trending upwards as far as popularity. And there's just a lot more, where there once was a very small number of companies making that style of instrument, the demand's picked up. So, ourselves included are starting to introduce ourselves into that market. And just any folk genre in general. I mean, you listen to the top Spotify bands, the top 100, and most of them, I say, are going to be somewhere in a folk genre.
Okay.
So
Interesting enough, I just learned this, that we've had some young 10-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds coming to the accordion.
You didn't tell me Timmy earlier. You said Timmy.
You didn't tell me how old he was.
Oh, okay.
I thought Timmy has to be an adult with a Black American express.
You're right. Good point.
But it was, I learned, so I'm always curious with everybody coming that's never, anybody young adult now coming to the accordion wanting to play. I'm always curious, where did you hear, why did you pick the accordion? And these young kids we heard it on a video game.
mm-hmm.
What video games featuring an accordion?
you would be surprised. Yeah.
The big one
Grand
now,
Theft Auto?
the big one is Zelda.
Zelda?
Not the last Zelda. I forget which edition it was, but one of the characters in the game plays like a big style of an accordion. It's not a piano accordion, but it's a instrument with buttons and bellows, and that was a thing.
That moved the needle on accordion sales.
Yeah, little things like that,
And the other song that was really popular by
Jan Tiersen,
Jan
talk about
Tiersen.
the Amelie thing.
Amelie thing.
Yeah, Amelie.
I mean, there's certain things that just kick people off to get an interest.
Well, it's. I mean, maybe I'm just attuned to it now more, and I'm like, my ears are just always looking for an accordion sound. But you hear it a lot once you notice it. It is in a lot of TV. It's in a lot of movies. The thing about the accordion, it has this it has this unique timbre. It has this it has a sound that's very evocative of one thing or another for people. Maybe it's evocative of being in Europe or something, and so, or it has a folky atmosphere that it can create or something, and so people use it as a musical texture, as a little spice, and so you might not hear it playing the main melody all the time, although you could, but you might also just hear it playing the role of like an organ or something in the background, like just creating that flavor, especially within like the folk and the folk rock genres. You know, I think another big one that kind of brought the accordion out was like bands like Mumford and Sons and the Decemberists, even Arcade Fire. They all have accordion players in the band, and they were like massively huge groups, you know.
Did those three bands, did that move the needle in interest?
Definitely.
All of it does.
It does.
Yeah. And then, you know, kind of a new, those are older groups, right? Those guys are 30 years old.
Well,
20, at least
20-ish years old now, yeah.
And then you have like the Lumineers, which is kind of a newer.
They were the same era, you know,
Yeah.
Mumford
Oh,
and Sons, Lumineers. Decemberists were actually the earliest folk
were
rock group that,
25 years.
because they got signed to Capitol Records, so they had a lot of like push.
Yeah.
But it's like you said earlier, like there's this, or like Joe said, it's this resurgence. It's like not one thing. It's like it's just kind of, it just feels like it to me as an accordion player. When I started, you know, 15, 16 years ago, it was like, it felt like it was just starting to kind of naturally come back. And I think it feels very organic. I don't think any one thing is like absolutely pushing it. I think it's just a matter of time and history and cycles and waves. And it seems like right now, so many little things are just sort of pushing us in a good direction, I think.
Well, let me ask you this question, because of the guests, you're the only one that wasn't raised in an accordion household.
Right.
What brought you to the instrument?
A lot of things, yeah. My dad is from Brazil. My mom's American, so growing up, we go to Brazil frequently and visit family and stuff, and it's a popular instrument, and especially in the northeast of Brazil, but also throughout Brazil. So I kind of had like a little taste of it. And then like completely by happenstance, I found an accordion. It was a friend of mine's mom who got it in the 70s from a door-to-door salesman. Super classic accordion story. And I started just dinking around on it. And the accordion world's small, and people are they want to get you in, especially if you're like a young person like I was. So I'm it's kind of cliquey, and certain environments of the accordion world are really predominantly like older generation accordionists. So when somebody younger comes in, they kind of all like flock to them, and they which is a great thing because they want to help you. They want to figure out how they can support you in their journey. I happened to be living nearby where there was an accordion camp happening. One of my friends from college saw me playing accordion.
Sure, this isn't a cult. It's starting to sound
exactly.
Like a cult, you guys.
And I saw the accordion in a way that I hadn't seen before. An artist named Frank Morocco, who's a legendary jazz accordionist and also a legendary studio musician in the LA film scene. So 1950, his first credit was Dr. Zhivago on a movie. He recorded accordion for countless movies all the way up until he passed away in, was it 2012? Yeah. So I got fortunate enough to meet him, and these people, I had a hunger for the accordion, and 16 years later, I'm here.
You played piano originally.
Yeah.
You went to school for piano.
Well, yeah, I went to school for voice first, and then piano for my
So
second
what
degree.
genre of music were you comfortable with at that time?
Jazz. Yeah.
Okay. And did the accordion fit into that? Was that the genre that brought you in?
No, I mean it is how the accordion has some history with jazz, but Frank Morocco is one of these, like I said, these legendary characters, particularly for jazz accordion. And there's a few throughout the years that we could kind of say like, oh, this guy and this guy and that guy. But Frank Morocco, like I said, it showed me that like the stuff that I was really getting interested in piano and all kinds of other stuff like that, that it was possible on the accordion, and that it could be like swinging, and it was like a huge, it was like a huge level of awareness just happened. Seeing him play was like, oh, people, that's possible. Okay. And then it was like I was hooked.
So where were you living when you picked up the accordion?
I was living in Mesa, Arizona.
Mesa, Arizona. So how'd you end up here? What's your journey? Because you're not family, so here you are. So once again,
It's a cult.
Thank you.
Yes.
I was just going to say that.
I got my robe, and
Renee, I don't know if we're going to leave. So secret handshake.
Yes, exactly.
No, what brought you? Why did you migrate up from Mesa?
so I had been playing accordion for a number of years. Like we talked about earlier, I had done some competitions, and after one of these accordion camps, another great accordionist named Frank Petrilli, he brought me back after the concert. We had finished our final thing at the camp. I had been playing for a couple years and really working my butt off, and he goes like, "Hey Gabe, come over here. Your accordion sucks, man." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm a student. I don't have money." He's like, "Well, I got one you can have." It was my dad's accordion. It's like never been played, and I didn't know anything about what it was, but somebody told me, "Oh, he's giving us AM1100."
Once again, it's a cult.
Yes. He's like, and this is gonna sound weird. He's like, "All you got to do is come to my house in LA. You pick it up, no strings attached." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna get like chopped up into little pieces or something." I got the accordion, and
here, so.
and then the next year I did another competition, or something happened. The Petosas put like an advertisement out in one of these accordion festivals, and I was on the photo, and that was cool. So I met Joe on the phone calling to like register my accordion. This is the serial number. I'm the new owner. So that was like the beginning of the relationship, was just, I'm playing your instrument, I'm out there, and just would be good to know you.
Let me ask you this. First time you picked it up, the AM1100, right? You've been playing a no-name model. It doesn't matter what it was. Somebody said it wasn't very good. What did you notice picking up an AM1100 for the first time?
It's indescribable. It's like night and day. It's like you're driving a Geo Tracker or something, and then you go to like, a Ferrari or something. I mean, really unbelievable.
So you noticed it right away?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's even for a beginner, you feel the difference. You hear the difference mostly. So then I started touring with a band for a while. I was playing in this folk rock group, and I'd come through Seattle a lot.
What band?
A band called Jared in the Mill.
Okay.
And so we'd be touring a lot, and I was in the band for a few years, and we'd come through Seattle a lot because we were in Arizona. So if we were going East Coast way, we'd come on the way back. If we were going West Coast to the Midwest, we'd go on the way out, visit the shop. Sometimes I'd do some demo videos, hang out, comp everybody tickets to the show, hang out, and that was sort of me getting a little bit closer, especially with Joey. And then some things happened, and I was ready to get out of Arizona, and this was just, I consider myself
We did
very
introduce
lucky.
him to another accordion player.
My fiance, who also works here as well, happened to be here, and so
She's not related to you guys.
Nope.
Okay.
we're
Jamie
like
Mashler.
Jamie
had
Mashler.
been with us for a few years.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Jamie Mashler, accordion virtuoso and teacher to the stars, I like to say.
Are you calling yourself a star?
Well, not me. No, Jamie teaches
She
a lot.
teaches him other things, not
That's
accordion.
right. Exactly. I won't say too much. Yeah, it worked out. Somehow I found myself here. I didn't expect to find myself here, and I'm really glad to be here. It's amazing.
So, Joe, I haven't asked you, do you play?
Not actively, no. I mean, I've played since I was a child, of course, and for many years.
Did you play? Were you ever a weekend warrior musician?
No, that wasn't quite. I mean, if you don't count the, grandma's social club events or,
Did you ever get paid being a weekend warrior musician?
No, I mean, I had a
Grandma
few,
slipped you $50,
I
but
had,
no, but
I had a few paying gigs as a kid, just kind of fun stuff. But no, I mean, I'm more like my great grandpa, where I've ever since I was a kid, I started playing, but ever since then I was always interested, since I spent so much time at the shop, from 4 years old on, into the inner workings of how the heck these things function. So I'm more interested in the engineering aspect of the
So is he one of those kids, we've all heard stories about, little, we'll call him Timmy again. Little Timmy takes apart dad's television set and, Dad comes home and TVs are dangerous, but you get the idea. The toaster's on the living room floor in 50 parts. Did he ever take an accordion apart?
He watched a lot.
He watched a lot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How old were you when you first started working on them?
Oh, I mean, 5. I mean, my mentor, I'd say, was
he worked with my dad
and my grandpa and our family friend, and I mean, our right hand man, Julio.
What were you doing at 5 to work on an accordion?
Sitting on the bench, just watching and handing tools over to whoever asked, and just viewing and
How old were you when you first started? I don't care what it is per se, but like you started working on an accordion without like handing tools to grandpa or dad. You did something.
I would be the side job guy, right? So I would, here, cut this felt to the size and this and that. That was 10, 11 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I didn't get serious as far as, being here full time until I was, 22 out of college.
Okay. Where'd you go to school?
UW.
Okay.
Yeah.
What'd you major in?
The old media and communications.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's applicable.
Yeah. It was the easiest degree.
He works really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I played, I was an athlete, very interested in the athletics as a kid.
What sport?
Oh, baseball, basketball, football, golf, but baseball was my primary sport. So,
Did you play for UW?
No, I played in junior college in Arizona. But my
which one? Just out of curiosity.
South Mountain Community College. Yeah. So my whole athletic career was plagued by, injuries. So I've had numerous torn knees and elbows and shoulders. So feeling a little old. Accordion is maybe something I should have stuck with at an earlier age.
I don't know. 27 pounds, you'll have a bad back.
Yeah.
I don't know. So Petosa's been in business for 100 years.
Literally.
What's next?
That's a question for Joey.
What's next? What does the future look like for you, for this instrument in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think the evolution has started already. I think we're 6 or 7 years into that evolution that I think will maintain itself for a while, that will continue to evolve. And I think that looks like, a much, much wider access to consumers around the world. The whole word of mouth thing was something that, kept our business going for 60, 70, 80 years. And since the internet, when I came aboard, I mean, we had 2010, we had a website that looked like it was from 1995.
It was from 1995.
It was actually, yeah.
Did you build it?
No, we hired somebody from 1995.
Yeah.
Never updated. Okay.
So, we were surviving that way. And, I, of course,
To me, it was just a fad. It was going to end and, go away. It wasn't going to last.
Nobody's going to buy anything off the internet.
Nobody's going to buy it. Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, believe it or not, I actually learned some things in college, and I applied those to our business once I got out of college. And a lot of that was media communications based stuff, evolving.
So what are you doing? What are you doing in modern communication styles?
Yeah.
So you guys had a 1995 website. Before that, newspaper ads, magazine ads, word of mouth.
Right.
Okay. So what are you doing now? How are you getting the word out about? Because I'll be honest with you, I don't know that I would buy a $12,000 to $30,000 accordion off the internet.
Yeah.
Off your Shopify page.
Yeah.
I just don't know that I would.
No, it still surprises us.
But obviously then people are. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
But what are you doing to broaden the awareness of the brand?
Advertising is one of my least favorite things to do. I prefer to let the instrument and what we do here speak for itself, and let the advertising come from those happy customers out there that are going, to their friends or going online and talking about their experience. That's our favorite form of advertising.
Well, just like when I talked to Toby in an episode previously, right? And he unsolicited and gave you guys a plug.
Yeah.
I think he said he had to come up here for something in the near future, but he was, gushing about you guys. Renee talks about his dad playing your instrument, 40, 50 years ago. You can't do better than word of mouth.
Yeah.
But you need more. Well,
you do. I mean,
you want more mouths. Speaking
yeah. I mean, it never hurts. But at the same time, I mean, we don't spend too much time advertising because we couldn't be busier even if we wanted to. So,
Okay.
I mean, we're at capacity. for the most part. Our interest now is presenting our products in a better, more refined way to our customers to allow them to better, click a button and order an accordion without seeing it, or, we prefer to talk to them, but we can't help that sometimes people just use what's there on our website, and they look at our reputation in many different arenas, and feel comfortable enough, ordering something online. And of course we have, plenty of policies that make that more feasible and more comfortable, which, we have order an accordion online, you have a 10-day trial period to make sure you love it. I mean, we trust our product so much that we'll send something to somebody on our own dime and trust that they're going to love it so much they're not going to send it back, but they always have that option. Yeah.
I want to ask a question. So this shelf over here, you guys help me out. Not the top shelf, but the one with the two black units that I can't really see. Mm-hmm. Are those AM 1100s?
No.
No?
There's only one 1100. Right?
So if you were to randomly go over there and pick up two A 1100s, would they? So the question I'm asking is, how different is each instrument? Are they? Because like, if you look at guitars, this Telecaster weighs 4.7 pounds, this one weighs 4.10.
Yeah.
So somebody would claim that this one plays differently than that one. So fresh from the factory, good condition. Is there a real noticeable difference in the instrument? Like if I were to buy one online and you were to package it up and ship it to me, would it play much differently than the one you didn't package up and ship it to me?
No.
Yes and no.
I mean,
yeah.
Because I can go back a little bit further than that. Is the instruments are made in essence identical, right? Mm-hmm. But yet each one has its own personality.
The wood, the grain in each, yeah.
Yes, but more importantly, that personality really doesn't develop until it's played. Mm-hmm. And so, if you found somebody that came in, which we have, if we have two or three instruments today, they do want to try them and play them because they think there is something different. That can be psychological. Mm-hmm. It could be something that you can't explain. But 10 years from now, bring the same three instruments back, they're completely different.
And let's just assume that they're all been treated equally. Not one hasn't been left in the trunk of my car.
Right.
They've all been treated equally.
Right.
If you sat down and played all three of them,
you will find a noticeable a decent accordion player or somebody that's been around accordion can tell the difference between those three instruments. There is a difference.
So if you just randomly pick two of the same model off the shelf, they're going to weigh the same within
ounces.
Within ounces, so very close. So there's really not a noticeable difference until they've been broken in, if you will.
Correct.
Okay.
And that becomes more severe, that difference, 10, 20 years down the road, depending on the environment, of course, in which it's been played and, who's playing it and what type of attack do they have and, so on and so forth.
So you're at capacity, but you want to present things in a more, I don't know what the right word.
Virtual way, I'd say.
Virtual.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, one thing is I look at this as an outside. I always want to look at our website and how do I view that as a non-web, non-online purchaser? In my whole life, I've never dealt with it much, but
because it's fat,
right? It's not going to stick around. And our whole history has always been, and Gabe's learned this, my son's learned this, I learned this. It's about education. It's about informing customers, about educating customers about the instrument and the differences and what makes ours different than anybody else's. That's kind of the point. And I look at all these other people selling accordions on, you can buy them online. Nobody else shows you the inside of what they're selling. They just, here's a picture of it or here's the video and you just see it.
That's all I see.
That's all you see, and you get to hear it on a video of some sort. But nobody, our intention is to go in and provide all this critical information about what goes inside the instrument and then physically show it on the inside.
I think that makes sense.
And then you're saying, who would buy a $17,000, $20,000 instrument on the internet? Well, if you can legitimately see how it's made inside and read about it, and then go out and let's say go to another website to compare that with somebody else's, what they're selling for half the price, I can tell you would, if you honestly are interested in quality and price isn't the issue, you're going to buy the better instrument, and it's already proven to you. It's already we have the reputation.
When did you sell your first accordion online to somebody that hadn't been in? You what's this order to Chicago? I mean, who's Bill Smith?
That was probably one of our first website evolutions, which would have been back in 2014, maybe 13, somewhere in there. I mean, it certainly took a few years to get some legs as far as.
But what was that like here? I mean, seriously,
I fell over.
We would call. I mean,
Joey
we
said, "I told you so," and I just like, okay, this isn't going to
so
happen.
my mind would be like, it's a scam.
Yeah.
Make sure the money clears.
Yeah.
That would be my attitude.
There was a lot of that up front. Yeah. And it was, Dad, I called him at night. You see that order we just got online? Can you believe it? This is
And you're
10
going, well, it
years
was
ago.
for an accordion strap or something, a hat or something, and you're like, no, we sold an accordion.
Yeah. 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 And I mean, these days, the majority of our business is not necessarily never speaking to the customer first, but certainly the majority of our business is online, is purchases from our website.
Okay.
And in my era, and my dad's era, I remember, my dad typed, between my dad and I, we typed probably 6 or 7 letters a day and mailed them. That's how we communicated, because we received 3, 4, 5, 6 letters a day inquiring about our instruments. And then we would send out a whole publication like this, almost a 1/4 inch thick of testimonial letters, pictures, photos, information about the instrument. So we just wouldn't reply to as a letter, which we would include, but it was all this product information and educational information.
In 2022, how many people walk through that door unsolicited and buy an accordion? Does that happen very often?
Oh, on a weekly basis.
Couple a week. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
At
Some
least.
Saturdays, Fridays, 3 or 4 accordions go out of here in one day. And that's on a weekly basis.
Now, are those consumers that are walking in the door, what are they buying? Are they buying one of the other brands? What's a
lot is, there's kind of a multitude. There's, people just beginning and they want information. And of course, all business motives aside, our goal is to educate people. The more educated people are, the more they're going to be interested in our products.
It's a cult.
Yeah, well, exactly. And then, of course, there's those from out of town who we've maybe never spoken to. They're
this
coming
was
through
a
town.
destination for them. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And there's people that we see after we haven't talked to them in 20 or 30 years. And, maybe now they're retired and they have more time and they're coming in to, get something more efficient, lighter weight, smaller, whatever the case is.
So I think your dad might have taken this call before we hit record. Do you get many calls from people saying, hey, I have this accordion. You guys want to buy it?
Oh gosh, yeah, we get that one a lot. Yeah, patience is key on that one. So we answer that question, a half a dozen times a day. And it's, usually a 2-minute phone call where it's absolutely, we'd love to help you out. We can have you in for a free appraisal and we give you all the information you want to have. But, there's a lot of times where there's some stubborn folks on the end. So can you just tell me what my accordion's worth without seeing it? And the answer is always no. So.
Right. So has anybody ever called you and said, hey, I have an accordion. I think it's in really good shape, blah, blah, blah. Because like I told you before we hit record, I used to sell stuff for Tacoma Goodwill.
Yeah.
And we'd get all these accordions and they were just, we get excited, but then you open them up and then you after you're done retching, you just want to dump it in the dumpster because it's so bad. They're just foul.
Yeah.
But has anyone ever said, hey, I have this, so my attitude would be like, yeah, right, it's really nice. Mm-hmm. So, but has anyone ever said, hey, I've got this really nice accordion. It was, my dad's or my grandfather's or my mom's or whatever. And they bring it in, you go, oh, wow, this is really, really cool.
Mm-hmm. That's 1% probably.
Yeah.
That high.
One out of 100.
That high.
Yeah, that high.
That's actually surprising to me. So have any of these museum pieces, is that how they came in? Any of those by chance?
A lot of those have some history with, friends and family or whomever over the years that, had a connection with our business or just a connection with, one company or another that, just out of the kindness of their own heart thought this was the best place to, sentimentally display their piece of history. So, a lot those have come from a lot of, eclectic people.
stories
a lot of stories over the years.
Still
Yeah,
have
for
names
sure.
on them too. You can see.
Yeah, we've tried to document who's giving them.
I'm looking around the room and they're all sitting here and they look. I'm kind of torn. Some of them look like typewriters to me, and then some of them like this one silver one, or not the gray one above the door looks like a cash register.
There you go.
I don't know why. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Well, so when you're not, so you guys, when you're not doing the thing that you do here, Joe, do you drink coffee?
I do drink a little bit in the morning, yeah.
So, only in the morning?
Just in the morning.
Gabe,
That's all I got.
do you drink coffee?
Morning.
Just. All right, so where's a great place to get coffee around here? Don't say your Keurig machine behind you, but where's a great place in the Linwood area to get coffee?
Whew. We only serve ourselves this crappy Keurig here.
We're not.
That's a
gonna
good
get sponsored
question.
by them.
Senior's the real coffee connoisseur. So.
Okay. So when you're not working, what do you do for fun and excitement?
Well, I got 2 kids, 2 and an 8-year-old, and
So you have all the time in the world.
Yeah, they take up about 100% of the rest of the time that I have. So,
What are they into?
My daughter 8, she plays accordion. She's been doing that. She's actually taking lessons with Jamie, Gabe's spouse. And she started about 6-7 months ago, and she's just loving it. Yeah, she's really into music.
Once again, reinforcing the cult.
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, she came to that one on her own, actually.
Okay.
Unlike myself, she wasn't, even forced nor really strongly encouraged.
Were
It
you
was just,
strongly encouraged?
oh yeah.
Yeah?
Oh yeah. I think that might be part of the reason I went and played so many sports was because, instead of practicing 2 hours a day in the office, I got to
kick a ball.
go outside a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about you? What do you do when you're not doing this?
I'm an accordion teacher, so I have a studio. Jamie, my fiance, and I, we both teach. Probably have somewhere around 40 students collectively. Wow. Teach a lot online, teach a lot in person.
So how do you, music lessons online.
Mm-hmm.
Zoom?
Yeah.
Are you finding your students, is it easier for you as a teacher?
Sometimes, some ways it is. They don't have to I don't have to clean my office when they come to the lesson.
I thought you were going to say I don't have to wear pants.
I don't have to take a shower. It's, I think everybody, having to, if you're a music teacher in the last couple of years, we all know how things went. And in order to survive, we all kind of had to move to some level of online teaching. And I think everybody was surprised at how well it worked out.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing like being in person with somebody, in the same studio, playing together in person. That's always going to be the best thing. Doesn't matter, who you are. But the online thing is very convenient. I mean, I have students all over the country.
I was going to say, you could have a student from Mesa, Arizona who wouldn't be your student.
Oh, yeah.
If it was in person only. So it does.
I have students in Philadelphia. I have students in North Carolina. I have a student in Colorado. I have students in Arizona. I have students in Oregon. I have students in the Midwest. And I have students in town who surprisingly would prefer to do Zoom because it's just traffic and driving. So it's easier for them too in a lot of ways.
Okay. As we wrap this up, the question I always end these shows with is, what didn't I ask you that I should have? One thing I didn't bring up is you guys have a book. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the book?
Yeah.
And then...
So that's been my dad's passion project over the last year and a half. We were coming up on our 100-year anniversary and trying to find a way to honor that. And, had ideas, and we had some grand ideas that were, in an actual physical event. And then, of course, COVID happened. So that threw a wrench into things, and we didn't know, come 100 years, what it was going to look like. So the book kind of took on a life of its own, really. And it started with kind of just my dad's friend showed him a book that he had done for his own needs, and realized, wow, this is actually feasible. And just what better could we do than take the 100 years of knowledge and experience and people, really. I mean, the book is really about the people, less about our company and the accordion. It's really, it's most about the people that helped get us to where we are today. And so, the book it's called An American Accordion Story, a 4-generation family legacy honoring the accordion, the musicians, and their unique place in American culture. So that kind of says it all. I mean, that's been a really hot piece of merchandise for us this last 4 months. It just got published not too long ago. So
nice. Who's on the cover? There's a bunch of musicians there, but who and what instruments are on the cover?
Got one guy sitting here is on the cover. Dad, why don't you explain that one since you're...
Oh, let's just go. We got Troy Cannett. He's the keyboard accordionist for John Mellencamp.
Playing a little
He's
pro.
playing a little pro. Next is our own Gabe Hall-Rodriguez playing an AM 1100.
Yo.
Next is customer player
Willow
Certain. My grandfather's pictured in the middle. We have Bruce Sunpie Barnes. He's from New Orleans, playing he's a Cajun Zydeco, playing 1100. We have Jamie Mashler in her costume, and
playing a Legera,
and Chris Novoselic of Nirvana playing an Artista. And these were, just understand that the pictures these weren't choices we made. In fact, all the photos in the book, we gave the publisher 1,000 photos, and wanted them to come up with not just what photos would better tell the story, not what we don't want to choose a particular person. Mm-hmm. We would be skewed that way. We want what picture would tell the story better.
Okay.
And so the whole cover is based off of that and the photos and what tells the story, especially about today's modern accordion era.
Okay. So I asked these guys when you stepped away, what do you do when you're not doing Petosa Accordions? What's fun and exciting for you these days?
I'm home answering emails. Okay, I'm golfing.
So where's a great golf course around here?
Kids all grew up in Mill Creek, Washington, so I belong to the Mill Creek Country Club.
Okay. Where's the best place in Washington you've golfed?
I've had the opportunity to play some good courses: Seattle Golf Course, Aldera, and of course Chambers Bay.
Okay. Where haven't you played you want to try?
Augusta.
Okay. All right. So the last question is, what didn't I ask you guys that I should have asked you?
What's our Instagram handle?
Well, we'll get to all the promotional stuff. I promise. Sorry. Yes. But what didn't we cover that we could have covered? Because this could go on and on. Because there's 7,000 pieces in the accordion. This conversation could go on for a long, long time. So is the internet still a fad?
I guess it's going to be around a while. I'll stick with it.
Okay. Have you bought golf clubs online?
But I do a little more shopping online than I'm.
Yeah, I've had to hold his hand on that one. Yeah. I still process his Amazon returns for him.
Yeah. Rather go back to the store and give it back than ship it, because I don't.
I wish Amazon delivered in real time with these microphones yesterday. Do you know how hard it is to buy anything in person now, and you need it immediately?
Here's a good question. So I don't know if you noticed the cartoon on the wall.
I did not know the Far Side.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you didn't bring that up. Most everybody does. So that's a well-known Far Side publication where you have heaven and the angels handing out harps, and they say, "Welcome to heaven." Mm-hmm. And then the lower section is hell with fire, and there's the devil handing out accordions, and he said, "Welcome to hell."
So, have you ever met Mr. Larson?
So that actual one is the actual original pencil drawn by Gary Larson. It's signed with apologies. Gary and our family have been friends since he started being a customer of ours back in the 70s as a musician. Now, not an accordion player.
Right.
But he was a musician in town and did a duo for many, many years, and so became a music customer of ours.
So you guys inspired, basically you inspired it.
That was probably a little bit why the apology. Yeah.
But it is funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
What you didn't ask us what our favorite accordion joke is. I mean, that's always that's a classic.
Is there accordion humor?
That is the joke. That's the best joke I've heard. I don't have one actually, but
don't leave your accordion in the car. You might end up with 2 more after a break-in.
No, I like the best one where the guy's playing his accordion on New Year's Eve, and he gets done, and the owner says, "Hey," he says, "I'd love to have you back next year." And he goes, "Okay, can I leave my accordion here?"
There's got to be a book made of just accordion
Oh,
jokes.
that's
It's in the book.
Don't leave one in your car. You'll get okay. That's all right. So where can people find? Well, Joey's work. I mean, on the internet, right? So
That's all Joey.
all Joey. So where can people find out more about what you're doing, about the instrument, and all of that?
Yep, Petosa.com is really our most dynamic space for information, education, and of course product listings. We do a little on Facebook. The book's a great hard piece of hard machinery you can take home with you.
Scott, could you say like it's a nice coffee table? Like,
Oh, it's a beautiful book.
Say how
I mean,
beautiful it
absolutely.
is.
When I was thumbing through it, where did you? Well, I mean, let's talk about publishing the book. I mean, well, let's back up. We're going to start. This is where I warned you. This is why I warned you. It goes off the rails. So, you wanted to do a book. Super easy process, huh?
yeah, not so much, but
Right. Really hard.
especially when you don't have no experience whatsoever.
Right.
But we had a good group of people, and we
How long
hired the best.
How long did it take you from when you decided you're going to do a book? So actually, you're like, oh, I'll do a book one of these days. No, now you're going to sit down, and whether it was at the computer or handwritten notes or whatever you were starting, how long from start to finish?
By the time they put a year and a half,
Okay, so you got a year and a half of your.
and that was a weekly, hourly,
Okay.
daily.
Okay, are you happy with it?
I'm thrilled with it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It could. I'm sure if you look on page 42, you wish there was something maybe a little different. Maybe.
Our publisher said you will always
Right.
find something, no matter how many.
Right, but you're
versions you go through, but-
thrilled with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I'm thrilled with it. Again, our aspirations of always thinking quality. I'm just thrilled with the actual quality of being a hardbound and the paper. I mean, and the quality of the photos.
well,
and-
what I noticed immediately was the photography was phenomenal.
yeah.
So did you guys do all the photos?
Most of everything that's in the book is from our archives, from our history.
see, that's-
that my dad saved.
Okay, nicely done.
Yeah. Thank you.
And you gonna do another one?
No.
No. What are you gonna do next? What would you do? What would be your big
200th year anniversary?
Hmm?
And our 200th year, what would we do? I don't know. That's going to be up to
150 is a good one. Though.
I'll let you know.
150. No, but what would you like to see next? What would you like to do? What do you do on a daily basis? What makes you smile in this business?
I just think that just the gain of the popularity of the instrument, and what's very interesting, like you even mentioned, like when I told you how many accordions were sold in this country and where that accordion was at one time in the U.S. history, you had no idea. I love talking about that because it always shocks everybody. Unless you were involved, you have no idea the success of this instrument in this country alone. So that was kind of like I want to see young people read this book and learn a little bit more about the history of it. They think it's a cool instrument, but it's like it has a history that I don't think any other instrument has in this country.
You said something earlier, and I want to frame it over to you. Your teachers, when you first picked up the accordion, you came from a jazz background, and you said all these, and I'm paraphrasing, but all these older players kind of flocked around you to like encourage you to, but earlier you said that accordion teachers didn't like rock and roll, so they wanted the kids to learn, let's say polka music or whatever. Did you experience that from the older generation encouraging you to play? Were they trying to get you to play more traditional or?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's the general vibe. I mean, that's the one. I think that's
why we're losing cult members.
That's right. It's just a product of just, it is what it is. Like people, this accordion culture that these older generations come from was very strong. Mm-hmm. There was schools everywhere, and it was like a very strong cult community, and they had a certain thing that they were used to hearing, that they wanted to hear. And although nobody discouraged me in general from playing whatever music, they probably would have liked it if I played a few more polkas. But I was fortunate to have a good teacher who basically was interested in showing me other things besides like folk music and stuff.
Is there a genre of music that the accordion should not be part of?
No, they can go anywhere. Okay. I mean, it's this instrument that's been brought all over the world. It's so versatile in the sounds that it's able to create. The piano, it's a lovely instrument. You really only get more or less like one type of sound out of it. The guitar, sure, you could get a bunch of pedals and you can change it. The organ, you can change the sounds, but it's gigantic. So it's this instrument that has so much flexibility, and there's such a variety of styles of accordion-like instruments, whether that's the concertina or the bandoneon or the chromatic freebass or the diatonic accordion. It's like one of our friends and local accordionist, Corey Tiedemann, he always likes to say that the accordion is one of the most hot-rodded instruments, because like throughout its history, it's gotten things added, things taken away, the shape has changed, and it's all about fitting the culture and the music of wherever it is.
Okay. As we wrap this up, once again, Joe, where can people find out about Petosa? Your website? Are you on
Petosa.com, pretty simple.
what social media platforms?
Facebook, Instagram. We're really basic on that front, but
Okay.
yeah.
Getting better though.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah,
When there's
definitely.
enough time in the day, we get
You
to
gonna
it.
jump onto like TikTok and do 30-second videos of...
Wait
No.
for the 5th generation,
No.
maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a fad, maybe. But no TikTok.
All right. Well, thank you guys. This has been a lot of fun for me. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me today.
Thanks for having us,
Thank
Scott.
you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Join us next time for another episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast.